Hey guys, this is Faster U4 brought to you by FitLab, Tailwind Nutrition, Biomaxa and Capital Cycles. If you're a cyclist, you want to go faster? Then let's giddy up. Hey guys, welcome to episode 35 of Fast U4. Brought to you by FitLab, Tailwind Nutrition, Biomaxa, Capital Cycles. Hey, we're bike racing on the weekend. A local time trial put on by the Wellington Masters Cycling Club. Let me tell you all about what happened. Got another win. Let me tell you how I did it. It was tricky. Had to do a thing. I'll tell you about it. I'll tell you what I learnt, what that tricky thing was. Coaching tip of the week. And some technical stuff about power on the TT bike. Tell about what grinds my gears, and we'll talk about next week's race. I'll give you some tips, some hot tips about the course, what to look for, what to do. Alright, let's have a look at yesterday's ride. The Wellington Masters Cycling Club time trial on the new and not really improved Liverton Road course near Lower Hutt. 4 laps, 24 kilometre individual time trial. Went off the line at 9:34. Time of my official time, 34 minutes and 12 seconds. You'll notice that is not for a 24k TT uber quick. There's a good reason for that. I'll tell you what it is. We had, what did I just say? 34 minutes and 12 seconds. That'd be right. Alright, so got some data here. What I'm looking for in a good TT from my riders. 34 minutes, 12 seconds. We had distance 24.1 Ks, climbing 83 metres, so there is some kind of rolling, annoying sections in the southbound leg of this course. I'll tell you how I attack those this time around. Average speed 42.3 kilometres per hour. Average power of 312 watts for an EP of 316, so very consistent power delivery you'd expect to see in a TT. Heart rate 157. About where I'd expect for my my L for my MLSS, my maximum lactate steady state power, which on a TT bike is much lower than it is on the road bike, a different position. There's a good reason for that. I'll tell you about it in a minute. Cadence 87, quite low, and I've found that TTing at a slightly lower cadence than I was used to. Used to TT somewhere around 95, put that down almost 10 RPM, especially in the windy conditions yesterday. It's a little more stable when you push a higher gear. And I also find that I like the challenge of trying to climb on top of a big gear. Kind of helps with your speed a little bit. You get that feeling of you chuck it up a gear and you sort of have to find a way to get on top of it and turn it. Quite enjoy that. So as far as those power numbers go, not particularly thrilled about that. Would like to do a little bit better. I think the main factor on that course yesterday was the wind. It was actually that bad. It was kind of gusty, and I found that it would affect your power delivery because it would sort of gust, get you a little bit off your stride. You'd lose power, you'd come off the power, and then have to sort of get back into it. There's a number of times where that sort of happened. You can almost see it in the data. But that's the same for everyone. So, what we're looking for in a good TT. Here's my data. I think probably one of the main important parts is the start. And the TT, the common thing you'll hear, and it's super important, and it's much harder to do in practice than it is in the abstract, is don't start too fast. So I want to see within about 30 seconds a strong acceleration, not crazy power, up to target speed and target power within 30 seconds in your position. So if I zoom in and have a look at myself here, this course is probably about 10 seconds where you start and kind of do a little corner that goes onto the main road. So you can't, there's probably about 10 seconds there. You can see that little gap there. If you're looking at the screen, it's started my Garmin at, maybe about 7 seconds to go. And I didn't really come on the power till maybe like 12 seconds. So there's a 5, maybe 6 second gap there where you're turning onto the main road. So from that point, the total elapsed time, if I look at the speed grid line in green there, count the speed and power to a duration of 35 seconds. So it's pretty good. And I noticed yesterday it's very hard to avoid that feeling where you're kind of bulletproof for the first minute of a time trial. You can push 500 watts very quickly. That will destroy you and get on top of you. You can actually see, even though this section of road is very flat and wide and good, because of the gusty wind, you can see the speed line kind of wavers a bit. You'd expect it to be much more stable, and that's because the wind would gust and blow you off through them, as I said. Power delivery reasonably smooth. So that's the end. There was a different part of this course. For the guys that haven't ridden it yet, there's a really nasty rough section of about 50 meters or so before the north corner turn. There's not really anything you can do about that. You do have to come off the extensions and hold on a little bit over the rough tarmac, because otherwise you might get thrown around a little bit. Not that safe. Once you're onto the green paint and you're turning, that's no problem. It seems to be pretty grippy. I wouldn't overdo it, but it's not too bad. Make sure you look right as you come onto the road to give way to traffic, and then you can start your southbound leg. Southbound leg on this course, as I said, it was a tailwind, so it was kind of easier in that respect. The problem is that on this leg, the tarmac's not that great, which kind of puts you off your rhythm a little bit, and there is those, you can see from the speed line, although it's generally higher, averaging, let's see, somewhere around about 47 to 48k an hour along that stretch. You do sometimes have to come off the extensions to climb up. Kind of gets you off your rhythm. It's not so great when the wind's going that way. You kind of want a decent, probably for this course, you really just want very low wind conditions. That's probably the ideal. Maybe a touch of a southerly. I tried a little thing on this, which was in the last section, coming southbound, instead of getting onto the off the extensions and climbing standing up these sort of 3 small rollers, I stayed in position, trying to maintain about the same power, for the reason that I wanted to see if the aerodynamics of being in position would improve the time compared to standing. From what I could tell from the data, no, it was much of a muchness. It's not, they weren't really long enough to affect much. There's probably something to be said for it on a long false flat or something like that, when your speed's relatively high, but here it didn't matter so much. Coming in, reserving a little bit for the finish. If we look at results, what did I say I did? So I was in first, 34 minutes 12 seconds. Tice Robinson, good ride, 34 minutes and 57 seconds in third place. Another rivet rider, Angus Taylor, 36:27. So they were good rides. Ho Buke, who is not a big time trialing savage, is a savage, just doesn't look like a time trialist. Only a couple of seconds behind Angus, 36:29. So that was a pretty good ride. Kieran Allwood, again, only a couple of seconds. And then Andrew, he's about a minute back. Den Shepherd, 36:44, 34, 1 second back. So there's like about 4 or 5 guys all within a few seconds of each other there. Really, really tight. So good riding, guys. Rider of the day was Mike Howard, who won on handicap. Congratulations, buddy. So I turned out about 32 riders by the looks. And yeah, all in all, a great, well-organised, timely, simple event that I enjoyed turning up to. So thanks, guys. So what I learned out of that was another kind of rule about time trialing, kind of up there with in the pantheon of time trialing rules, along with don't start too fast, is ride your TT bike, get used to it. And I've been trying to do at least one workout during the week on the TT bike, and of that being in your position on the extensions for as long a period as possible. And it seems like there is, it's an uncomfortable position, and there's certain small adjustments you can make to how you, for instance, hold your hands or tense your shoulders that actually make quite a lot of difference to comfort and improve your power. And you kind of can't really get that without spending time on the machine. There's no way to shortcut that. Now, on the plus side, you don't actually have to do a lot of time. I mean, it's one ride a week. Maybe a couple if you're doing a lot of time trialing. But you should do it. And I noticed, and part of it you should do at race pace. If you've got some flat intervals to do, if you can do them on the TT bike, I think that'll help a lot. One thing I found near the end of it yesterday is naturally started relaxing my shoulders, hands, upper body, and sort of resting a little more, elbows on the pads, and it really seemed to improve my rhythm on the bike. I started actually rocking a little more, rocking my hips, rocking my shoulders a little more, and to a degree, I think that's actually good for me. It proves I'm not so stiff. There's this natural inclination, if you haven't been on the TT bike for a while, to get it kind of rigid. So, it's probably, especially in windy conditions, it's a little scarier position anyway, because it's not as stable as, holding onto the drops on a road bike. But, so part of it is probably just being relaxed in the position, allowing your body to get a little looser, a little more relaxed. That helps with your power. So that's what I'd say about what I learned there. The other thing actually is this is the first very decent length time trial I've done with the disc wheel. I've actually had a Zip Super 9 disc I've been testing out for a few months now, but I haven't, because of the season, I hadn't had that much chance to use it. Got this from Capital Cycles in about June. I did use it for a very short TT at Tour of Taranaki. It seemed great, but as I say, this is the first little long one I did. I went out and did some testing during the week in a little calmer conditions than it was yesterday, and so I could get aerodynamic data and compare. I crunched quite a lot of numbers for some of my clients and also for my interest, and the final outcome when I analysed it using the Chung virtual elevation technique, free software, Golden Cheetah, is about 0.15 CDA. So what does that mean? Well, my position I tested a number of times before with reasonably good test protocol around 0.245, 0.24 to 0.245 I'd say is realistic. And the change with the disc, of course it doesn't change your frontal area or anything like that. It's a good example of something you change on your bike that changes the overall fluid dynamic. So it went down from 0.245 to 0.225. So somewhere in the region of 0.15 to 0.2. So, okay, what does that actually translate to? Well, at about 300 watts. No, I did the math on slightly lower. I did the math on about 230 watts. Whether or not it makes a difference, it won't be that much. put that 0.15 CDA translates to somewhere around about 10 to 15 watts, which is quite convenient. You know, you can sort of think of that 0.15 like 1.5 being 15. That's quite cool. That's going to change, by the way, according to your angles of the wind and things, how the dynamic of the air over you and your bike changes. But you know, you can't. I don't have a wind tunnel, so we can't model all that perfectly. But I think if we're talking in the region of 15 watts for the disc, that's pretty good. In a 40 kTT, to translate that into time, that's probably somewhere between 30 seconds to a minute, probably, which is, you know, obviously a lot of times going to take you from a situation where, you know, getting you on the podium or something like that. So, you know, a disc is, it's a big behind, you know, good position, and something like a decent skin suit and all those basics. A disc is up there. Looking at those numbers, it's totally in line with what I've calculated previously from other data online, and so it's good to kind of verify that. The other thing is, I don't really think, if you're wondering if, you know, a Zip Super 9 is basically, it's probably one of the top, behind something like a lightweight Autobahn, it's probably about as good as you can get. If you look, a lot of pros, especially in the track, will ride de-stickered lightweight Autobahns. If you have a look at those, they've got this weird long kind of spoke pattern. I don't know if that's the carbon layup or some internal spoking or what it is. Those wheels are acknowledged to be probably one of the fastest you can get. But the Zip Super 9 is probably very close. It also happens to be one of the stiffest you can get. It is wide. I want to say 26 millimeters. I can't remember if that's accurate. This one's wide. Maybe at its widest point. I don't know. It's a flat disc, quite wide. You want to verify that you actually have enough clearance in your frame and your brakes to take that. If you don't, go for the Zip 900, which is probably about 99 to 100% as fast. Little narrower, a tiny little bit heavier, I think. Oh, take the back. It may even be lighter, but yeah, we're talking about a tiny margins here. But actually about $1,000 cheaper, a little narrower. To be honest, I'm not sure that the premium for the Zip Super 9 is worth it over the 900. The one thing I will say about Super 9 is it does have a hub and axle that you can change, and for track use. I don't know whether the 900's got that or not. Comes in tubular and clincher as well. And some people like the versatility of the clincher. I actually got tubular because I wanted to look at running it on the track from time to time. But and the fastest tubulars you can get are 4 tubulars, not clinchers. So that was why I went with that. Just had the downside of being a major pain in the ass. You have a puncture. So that's Zip 900. Where's Zip 900? That's Zip Super 9 testing in kind of the real world. If I look back on some of the results I had last season, I'm hoping I can improve on those by a reasonable margin by having my position a tiny bit more dialed down and having the disc. So happy with that. That's what I learned. Well, the other thing I'd just say is actually something along in the kind of things people ask a lot of questions about is, one is, why is your power lower on a turbo trainer than it is outside? I've talked about that before. I'll talk about it again in another time, but the other one is, why is the power lower on a TT bike than it is, say, in an open hip angle climbing position on a road bike, or on a road bike in general? Well, the main difference is that because your torso is lower, your hip angle is more closed, you can't produce quite as much power. So I think, you know, we all kind of know that how much power is kind of the question. And I think, you know, just go back to the idea that you ride your TT bike a lot, the proportion of your maximum steady state power you'll be able to produce on a TT bike will be improved the longer you ride it. You know, if you look at someone like Fabian Cancellara, who used to ride it when he was coming up to a big TT, the Olympics or Worlds, he was riding, for 6-hour rides on his TT bike. It was like everything. He was so good, he was probably producing very similar power in TT position, close to 100% of his standard maximum steady state power. But for more normal people, it can be as low as about 85%. When you're getting good, probably about 10%, and 90% of your maximum steady state power. And every kind of little increment from there is trickier and trickier, but will improve the longer you stay riding that TT bike. I see guys, because I actually, you know, test and look at the data of a lot of riders, I can tell you that if once you get to about 8 or 7% loss, assuming you're in a good position, that's getting pretty good. Mine is actually not anywhere near as good as that, so I think my position is probably pretty extreme, and the reason I work with that, mine by the way, is it's about probably closer to that 15%. So my maximum steady state power at the moment is somewhere between 300 and maybe 400 watts. It's 390 conservatively, and in this TT, it's what did I maintain an EP about 320 there, or 316 or whatever it was. Now that was probably affected another bit by the wind. I've put out 325 to 330 for an hour on that bike before. So that is, with 10% for 360. Yeah, so it's probably north, call it about 15%. The reason I do that is because, so you might say, well, why not change your position? Well, because I've done the math on it, and because my position in my gear is so good, it actually is worth the trade-off in my case. Plus, that percentage improves as the season goes on. Late season T2s, I'm probably getting closer to 10%. So that's just to give you an idea of sort of what you can expect, power difference TT versus road. The moral of that story is ride your TT bike more. What grinds my gears is this time of any build-up. Normally I have two, one for spring races, one for summer, and in the middle of either of those is kind of a sensation which everyone gets, the mid-race season blues, if you like, which is this sensation that as your form comes up, you actually feel like you should be doing more between races, and that's a big mistake. It leaves you flat. What am I talking about? Well, the way I kind of view a periodized training build-up for a race or a number of races more applies to, say you've got 8 to 12 weeks where you're riding every weekend or every second weekend or something like that. You want to do a lot of groundwork in your periodized build-up, improving your endurance, improving your threshold power, and as you race, you start to get that really good top end going. Then after you've done a few races, you're in good form, and it feels like in the middle of the week you want to do some really hard training rather than recover so you can completely blow your load on the weekend. When I say it in that sense, it probably sounds obvious that you do want to recover, you do want to have some bombs to drop on the weekend, but the thing that grinds my gears is that clawing, gnawing sensation that you're not doing enough, that you're too fat, that you haven't ridden enough Ks, that everyone else is riding more than you. You look on Strava, the graph looks better than yours. There's old ladies down the street riding more miles than you. Well, if that's your motivation, well, go out by all means and ride a lot, but you've got to remember your job, if what you're interested in is doing well in races, is doing well in races, not doing better than Bob and Strava. What that means is good recovery protocols between races, good preparation, and having the mental toughness, you know, not the mental toughness that you need to ride hard in the rain for a long time. That's all done in the middle of your race season. The mental toughness to say, I'm not going to get fat, I'm going to eat sensibly, I'm going to recover properly, I'm going to prepare for the weekend, and I'm going to drop my bombs not on Wednesday, but on Sunday. I know that's a lot easier said than done. I feel it myself, and I feel it now. One good way around that is to actually ride during the week. Don't take the time off. Half an hour spin on the turbo trainer at L1 or under. Do some pedaling drills. Do some technique and skill drills. That's all really valuable. It'll stop you going insane. It'll make you feel better about yourself. And it will offset some calories as well. All of those things help mentally and physically in the middle of the week. So that's sort of how I try to roll it. That's what I'm doing now. All right, next race. Let's have a little quick look at the Waira Rapper Cycle Challenge hosted by the Wellington Masters Cycling Club. Like the majority of the races I'm doing this time of year. This is held on the 1st of October next weekend. And if you're looking at the screen, this is the route. A 80k, almost exactly, circuit from Featherston around the lake and back. And you will find with this is can be very windy. It can be extremely windy. So if it is looking dodgy, I wouldn't pack your deep section wheels. It's going to be a pain. Guys, do get blown off the side of the road on this. Watch your echelons. Don't be a jerk right on the wrong side of the road, even if it can form a good echelon, because you know, dying on the bonnet of a car probably isn't worth dropping a few guys, you know. Crazy idea, especially around that eastern side of the lake there. Oh, so it's just around the western side of the lake. That's a classic. So do watch that. Watch the nor'wester. I think it is along there normally, blowing in, causing some strife for riders. No, I was right. I think it's the eastern side of the lake. Yeah, nor'wester, and that's why that echelon problem can happen, because that blows you to the other side of the road. Look, in short, stay safe, dudes. You know, look up the road for cars. Call out cars. Please, for Christ's sake, be safe. Don't do anything dumb along there. The first stretch down the western side of the lake, you know, there'll be a lot of attacks lighting it up. Pretty flat. Nice scenery along there. Try to stay in a good group, be on the wheel. Coming around, turning north, that's where the wind will change a little. Still probably a crosswind. And you're going to have the echelon situation, highly likely eastern side of the lake, be near the front. If you want a good video about that, the best video I've ever seen about riding in crosswinds and what to do was Eurosport. Google it, Eurosport echelon, something like that. How to, what to do, how it works. It's a very powerful technique. Early in my cycling days, I remember having exactly this section of road, tour of Wellington that was called then, echelons forming, everyone's in the gutter, not holding the wheel, It's a classic thing you see in Belgian racing, you see here in the Waira. Be ready for it, study up on that, know what to do. Number one thing, however, be safe. There's a sharp left turn, a small climb, which for some reason catches a lot of people out. I think it's, I don't know, it's just after Muttonborough. Maybe we're through Muttonborough, maybe it doesn't include that turn. If there's a sharp left turn, its moral of the story, be aware of marshals or signs in the final third of the race, pointing left. Don't miss that turn, dudes do it all the time. Don't know why. Got a little climb. And the final out of Muttonborough, there's a, probably the only real hilly feature is immediately out of Muttonborough. If I zoom in and look at this climb, it's not particularly big. I mean, it's only, it might take you a minute at race pace, maybe a little more. It's kind of, gets a little steeper up to the top. You want to be, don't be in the gutter in there. Be near the front. Pace really goes on because from that point, if I zoom out to the finish, is often sort of like a little downhill for a while. Can be a headwind, and it's only about 15-16 minutes of riding till the finish. So people do make the mistake of falling back there, thinking they'll get on the downside, the faster side of the hill, and they can't. So maybe because of that headwind, maybe because the pace really goes on. You want to be in the selection there. The sprint's kind of wide and open. Last year I went away in the final. Whether or not I'll be allowed to do that again, I don't know. To pick up third or fourth or something. The sprint is pretty wide. It's wide and flat. Probably a headwind, so you probably want to sprint later rather than earlier if you are in a bunch sprint situation. And be on a good wheel, especially if you're an old time trialist like myself, who can barely squeeze out 900 watts. Yeah, you want to get that one right. So that's the weekend's race. Wellington Master Cycling Club Featherston Fun Ride, they call it. I get confused. There's a couple of races that sound similar this time of year. 2 hours exactly it took us last year, 80 kilometers, 300 meters of climbing. So not a huge amount. We averaged 39.7, quite fast. And this, one other thing about this race, for some reason there is, generally a high average power requirement. My record power, I think for anything over about 20 minutes is set on this course, so pretty strong. I think there's one rule about this one: just try to be in a good position. That'd be my tip about that one. Alright, I'll leave it there. Thanks for listening. As always, brought to you by FitLab, Tailwind Nutrition, Biomaxa and Capital Cycles. If you'd like testing or a coaching plan, you can go to fitlab.co.nz. You can email me, steve@fitlab.co.nz. See you on the weekend, guys. Thanks for watching / listening to Fast You Fall, brought to you by FitLab, Capital Cycles, Tailwind Nutrition and Biomaxa. If you'd like to get in touch for a coaching program or testing, you can get hold of me, steve@fitlab.co.nz, or go to fitlab.co.nz. Talk soon, guys.